Right now in South Korea, the country with the absolute lowest birth rate on this planet is wasting its remaining energy fighting a pointless war over whether to marry or stay single, while the very foundation that makes either option possible is crumbling beneath their feet. It is not some complex mystery. It is a dry, cold, ridiculous contradiction. People are acting like they have the luxury to debate the lifestyle of marriage, when the reality is that the cost of living has skyrocketed so high that family has basically become a luxury good that most people just cannot afford to shop for anymore. People are obsessively debating the idea of marriage as a lifestyle choice, completely ignoring that the skyrocketing cost of living has effectively turned family into a financial product that most people can no longer afford to buy. The hypocrisy here is staggering because the same people who are so loudly arguing about their right to choose are also the ones trapped in a system that has already decided they cannot afford to choose anything at all. It is a vicious circle of economic anxiety masked as a cultural debate, and the worst part is that everyone is participating in this charade while the country slowly empties out.
Wait, is it really that simple? Just costs? People seem pretty passionate about this, not just talking about money. It feels like there is more to it than just the price of an apartment.
But that is the trick. You see, the intensity of this debate is actually just a mask. Why would they demand this? Why the loud, aggressive, I absolutely do not need men or marriage rhetoric that seems to dominate the conversation? The uncomfortable truth is that in the ruthless, high-speed, hyper-competitive landscape of South Korea, human beings have been completely commodified. You are not a person anymore. You are a bundle of assets, salary potential, and debt capacity. When the market demands that you pour every single ounce of your energy into economic output just to avoid starving, any extra burden dash like a partner who needs your time or children who need your money dash is seen as a dangerous, high-risk financial liability. And to make this work, the narrative has shifted to frame the rejection of these burdens as empowerment. It is an aggressive struggle for a larger share of a shrinking financial pie, and honestly, the way certain groups, Dash specifically, the intense focus on the modern Korean woman's being Dash, have centered themselves as the focal point of this issue has turned a structural economic crisis into a deeply personal gendered battle. The reality is that this rhetoric is just a defense mechanism against a system that treats people like disposable components in an economic machine, and yet the focus remains on fighting each other rather than fighting the system that made this environment in the first place. It goes deeper though. Consider the astronomical price of housing in Seoul. It is not just a market, it is a gatekeeper. When a middle-class home becomes an asset valued in the millions, the requirement for a dual-income, high-saving, debt-leveraging marriage contract becomes an impossible barrier. Young Koreans aren't just choosing not to marry, they are being economically disqualified. The rational actor in this market looks at the massive debt needed for a starter apartment, calculates the brutal cost of private education, and sees that marriage is essentially a high-interest gamble with potentially life-ruining downsides. They are not rejecting the concept of a soulmate. They are rejecting the fiscal catastrophe inherent in the structure. The me versus you mindset, that tragic fragmentation, is simply the manifestation of a survival instinct that treats a partner not as a companion, but as an uncontrollable variable in an already fragile financial projection. By forcing everyone to compete for the same limited, overpriced housing, the society has effectively turned intimate relationships into hostile negotiations where the threat of losing one's precarious economic footing outweighs the desire for familial connection.
I am telling you, if we get married now, our savings will vanish in 2 years just on rent and basic survival. There is no way we can afford to have kids and maintain this lifestyle.
So what do you want me to do? Sacrifice my entire career just to be broke and exhausted while you do nothing to help with the household? I would rather stay single and at least keep my own money.
This is exactly what I mean. See how fast that went from us to me versus you? They have completely forgotten that they are on the same team fighting a broken system, and instead they are tearing each other apart. This is the ultimate problem. The commodification of every single aspect of their lives has made them view their partner not as an ally but as a financial risk that needs to be minimized. And the tragedy is that both of them are right, but they are both wrong about who the real enemy is. It is not each other, it is the environment that makes a family a liability.
That sounds incredibly depressing. Does anyone actually realize they are fighting the wrong battle, or are they just too busy blaming each other? It seems like they have lost all sense of perspective.
The ones who realize it are usually the ones who have already hit the wall, but at that point it is often too late to change course. But let us look deeper. Why does the culture react with such extreme polarization? It is because Korean society is a weird, high-pressure blend of intense collectivism dash, where you are constantly judged by your peers dash, and hyper-individualism dash, where you are entirely responsible for your own survival. When everyone is under immense pressure to maintain a high-status facade to prove they are successful, the failure to achieve the standard marriage becomes a massive source of shame. So, how does the culture react? It reacts by creating binary extreme defenses. It is either I don't need anyone, I am perfect alone, or everything is the fault of the opposite gender. It is a desperate attempt to regain control in a world where people feel like they have absolutely none. And this is where the hypocrisy starts to show its ugly face. People are acting out, creating these elaborate justifications for their unhappiness, because admitting that the system itself is the cause is too terrifying to contemplate. This is not just about individual psychology, it is about the erosion of the social fabric. Think about it. The family dash as a state model in Korea has long shifted the burden of social care from education to healthcare to elderly support onto the private family unit. This was sustainable when the economy was booming and the population was young. But now, as the state fails to provide a robust safety net to bridge the gap, the family unit is being crushed under the weight of its own responsibilities. Without a public, non-familial infrastructure to offer a safety buffer, individuals are left with only two unsustainable paths: the traditional overloaded nuclear family, or, in a desperate attempt to survive, total isolation. This either dash or binary, this aggressive gendered fighting is a defense mechanism. It is a way for people to cope with the profound shame of failing to meet the unreachable standards of a society that demands the impossible. When you cannot be the perfect professional or the perfect partner, you retreat to a camp, you build an ideological wall, and you blame the other side. It is the perfect recipe for societal paralysis. Everyone is fighting to stay afloat, but nobody is looking at the ship that is sinking beneath their feet.
I get the pressure, but surely it cannot be that binary forever. What happens when people actually decide to go the perfect alone route? Is there no middle ground, no other way to survive?
That is where the plot twist comes in. So what happens when they get exactly what they asked for? A society where absolute independence is the ideal? The backfire is a slow motion, painful disaster. They are finding out that while independence is great in your 20s and 30s when you are healthy and employed, the cold, ruthless logic of capitalism offers absolutely no protection against the inevitable realities of aging, illness, and long-term isolation. They are discovering that the very social support system they rejected that tight-knit familial structure is actually the only thing capable of mitigating the harsh, unforgiving costs of life in a society that has prioritized everything except the actual well-being of its people. The system is designed to reward you for being a productive worker, but it does not give a damn about you once you are no longer productive.
I have spent 20 years focusing only on my career, and now that I am sick and cannot work, there is no one here to even bring me water or help with the doctor.
I thought I was making the smart choice by avoiding the risks of marriage. But now I see that I have built a fortress that is also a prison. I am completely, utterly alone.
This is the tragedy of it all. It is the hypocrisy of demanding the freedom to opt out, only to realize the market the very system they worship has now opted them out of any meaningful, sustainable future. They fought so hard to be independent, but in the end they just became alone and they have no one to blame but the system they bought into. The society is literally consuming itself and the people are too busy arguing about gender roles to realize they are the ones being eaten.
This is honestly one of the most intense things I have ever heard. It is like they are all walking off a cliff and arguing about who has the better view on the way down. Thank you for clearing that up. I definitely have a different view on this now.
It is my pleasure. We have to keep looking, keep asking, and keep questioning why this is happening. The future depends on it. Fuel the truth at dating in Korea. Support the structure. Stay safe in the lounge.